Hello, and welcome to this Unreal Engine 4 UI tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to change weapon settings through an in-game UI. For this tutorial I'm going to be using the first person template. What we're going to be doing is picking a color for our gun projectile. By default it's yellow, but I'd like it to also be red, green, and blue. If you head into the content browser and open the first person folder, scroll down to meshes and you'll see the folder with multiple meshes here and materials for that mesh. What we want to take is the first person projectile material. I'm going to rename that to projectile yellow. And now I want to create a material instance of that and call it projectile red. If you open it up, go to the diffuse color, check the diffuse color, and now I can scroll over to red. It's a little bit pinkish. There. Save. Exit. Create another material instance, call it projectile blue. And another one, projectile green. Going to do the same for these as well. Alright, so now we have 4 colors for our projectiles. We want to be able to track these 4 colors easily with code. So I'm going to go back to the Blueprints tab under First Person Blueprint, and I'm going to right click in the content browser, scroll to Blueprints, and I'm going to create an enumeration and call it enum color. Open that up. I'm going to have an enumerator for each color. So I have 4 colors. Start with red, green, blue, and yellow. Save that. Now we can also go a bit further than this, and we can change settings such as the rate of fire, whether the weapon is automatic, how much ammo it has. And the best way to do this is to again right click, go to Blueprints, and go to Structure. So I'm going to create a gun, settings. The best practices is to actually name it what it is first. So I'm going to call it Structure Gun Settings. There we go. I've added an E on there. Let's open that up. So the first thing I want to change is the color. So I'm going to create an enum color and name that simply color. I want to also add rate of fire. You can't have spaces in a structure. So it has to be all one word or use underscores. I'm gonna have that be a float. And just for fun, I'll add in is automatic. So say B is automatic. And change that to a Boolean. Rate of fire, you can set the defaults here, say 0.1. We do want it to be automatic. We'll leave it on red. So we've got our structure gun settings. We've got an enumerator for each color. Now we want to work on the UI. So once again, right click on the content browser, go to user interface, and click on Widget Blueprint. I'm going to call this UI Weapon Select. Pull that up. Now this is the UI editor, the widget editor, and you have a palette on the left here. Go to Panel. I'm going to use a horizontal box, which orders these out in a horizontal fashion. I'm going to anchor this to the top, middle, zero out its X, zero out the Y. To see it's offset, so I'm going to set the alignment to be 0.5. And I want to make it bigger. I'm going to say 500. No, that's the Y. I don't want to do that. Leave that 100. Let's see. Let's make the X 1000. And move it down just a little bit. Let's see. Let's make this 150. Alright. So this will be the box that houses our buttons. Buttons are in common. So I'm going to drag one down here. And I'm going to set it to be filled. Give it a padding of 5. And I'm going to set the background color to a stark red. So this is going to be our red button. Seems a little big now, but it'll work here in a minute. Drag out a text block onto that button. Name it red. Now, if you select both the button and the text, you can copy it. And then you have to highlight the box. This is the container you want it to be in. Highlight it, right click, and click paste. And now you've got two buttons. And do that 2 more times. So now we have 4 buttons. We can change these to represent each color. So say red, green, blue, and yellow. I'm going to change the name. There we go. And it'd be a good idea to name each of the buttons. So we'll just name this button red. Do button green. Button blue. Button yellow. Now the way that I'm going to do this is I'm also going to add one more button. I'm just going to add it to the canvas. I'm going to put it in the very corner. Maybe 5 units out, 5 units down. 100 by 100. I'm going to call this button exit. So this will be the button that we press to get out of the color selection menu. And we can put a text on here if we want. I'm just going to put a big old X in there. Alright. Now we want this UI to interact with the player character. So let's go into the player character to set up the functions we want to call. So we need a function that allows us to update all of our weapon variables. So I'm going to go over here and click function and simply call it update weapon. Going to give it an input and call it structure settings and change it to a structured gun settings variables. I'm going to compile and save that. I'm going to pull this settings out. I'm going to break it. The cool thing is I can promote each of these variables to a variable local to this blueprint. So I'm going to drag color out and click promote to variable. Not promote to local variable, in this scenario, local variable is local only to this function, whereas this promoting to a variable makes it a global variable for this blueprint. I'm going to call it color. I can do the same with these as well. Or rate of fire. Is automatic. Gotta link all these up. And that's it for this function. If we go back to our UI, we can now click on our buttons here in the Variables tab, and you'll see under Events, OnClicked. You want to get the OnClicked event for each of these buttons. I'm going to pull away the exit here, because I want to deal with that separately. Now, in order to have this UI interact with our player, we need a reference to our player. So we're going to create a reference here, and just name it player. Change it to our first person character as a reference. Compile and save. And so we're going to drag out this player reference and drag out. So what was the name of that function? Update weapon. I'm going to find update weapon. So now you see we can input that structure settings here and change it in the character. So I'm going to connect this. I can actually split the structure pin and set these right here and now. So this is the blue button, so I'm going to say blue here. And you can modify these if you want to. Say that we don't want the blue weapon to be an automatic. You can just copy these for each one of these on-clicked events. Make sure they match up, so this one's green. This one's going to be red. This one's going to be yellow. So now when we've clicked on these buttons, we've called the update weapon function in the player character and have given it the instructions, whether it to be blue, what the rate of fire is, and whether or not it's automatic. But this is a reference to nothing. We have to set the reference in the player character. So we're going to get this begin play here at the top. I don't need anything to do with motion controllers because it's simply a tutorial, so I'm going to delete all this. Get the begin play. I'm going to create a widget. And the widget class, as you can imagine, is UI weapon select. And I actually want to promote this to a variable here. I want a reference to that. I'm going to call it weapon UI. And we also want to take this reference and set the player reference. And since this is the player, we're going to set that reference to be self. So now we've created the widget, we've gotten a reference to that widget for our player, and we've given the widget a reference to the player. Now we need to be able to call it and add it to the viewport. I'm going to use simply the M key. M for menu. So I'm going to get the weapon UI reference. I'm going to add to viewport when pressed. And that's it. That's it for that. Now, event construct will fire when we add it to the viewport. So we need to change some of the input settings. We want to only use our input for the menu. So I'm going to type in input. You see set input mode UI only. In widget to focus is going to be self. That we are the widget we want to focus on. And we need a player controller reference. You can assume that it's you. So get the player controller. Now we set that up. Now we want to be able to exit out of the menu. So when we press the exit button, we want to return the input back to the game. I'm going to do the same thing, just in reverse. Type in input, set input mode game only. And then we're going to remove ourselves from the viewport because we don't want the menu in the way anymore. And what this is called is remove from parent. That's the wrong thing. Remove from parent. And this will remove the UI from your interface. So now we've enabled ourselves to be able to bring up the menu as well as exit out of the menu. And when we click on any of the buttons, it will call the update weapon function, which will set these variables right here. Now we need to be able to use these variables. In this tutorial, I'm not going to go over the rate of fire or the is automatic. There's plenty of tutorials out there on how to do certain weapons. One I've done myself. You can check it out on my channel. But what I am going to use is the color. I want to be able to change the color of the projectile we shoot here out of the projectile, spawn projectile box. The spawn actor first person projectile will give us a reference to each shot. And each shot we can change the color of. So I'm going to drag out this reference. I'm going to set material for the sphere. So it'll also give me a sphere reference. And I'm going to set the material for that sphere. Because we have an enumerator, we can select our material based on those enumerations. So I'm going to grab my color enumerator, get it, and plug it into the index of a select node. And this allows me to set the material based on that variable. We've got a projectile red. Looks like I might have misspelled one of the other projectiles. Let's see, I think it was an E. Yes. Projectile green. Projectile blue. Those were those materials that we created earlier. And projectile yellow. Let's see how it works. Alright, so I missed one thing, which was in the UI weapon select event graph. When we set the input mode to game only, we need to reference the player controller so we can again receive input for the character. Once you make sure that's done, and everything should work as normal. I'm going to click M, I'm going to click green, and exit, and exit in green. Same thing with blue, yellow, back to red. And that's going to do it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you want to be notified when I upload a new video, then be sure to hit the bell next to my subscribe button. And that's it. Thanks for watching.